Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mob Psycho 100, Season 2, Episode 9. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up in events of the last episode, and Dimple is doing everything he can to calm Mob down, because he's like, yo, these are probably dummies made just, to make you think like your family's dead. And Mob's like, have you ever heard of a psychic ability like that? But he's like, come on, I like, there's no way like anything like this would happen. It's got to be like someone had to, like, your family's still out there. Maybe someone took your family to make you think they actually were dead so you wouldn't know it. And Mob actually does calm down, and like his 100% this time is obsession, and it's just like, right, protecting his family and also getting back at the people who took his family. So he ends up kind of psychically finding the people, which even Dimple's like, whoa, did he just like learn to do that just now? And so he ends up taking off after those guys. It all connects, so I'm going to jump to it a little bit. But I figured last episode, I was like, it had to be Show doing that, because I thought it would just, make it seem like Mob's family was dead so the bad guys don't come looking. I figured Show was behind it, which I was right. But Show did that without, for one, because even Risu was unaware of what went down, because basically he created this lie about like, oh yeah, your family wants some like staycation type of thing at this hot springs place, so they're none the wiser. Show got Risu involved because he knows, like, well, you're actually willing to fight. Your brother, on the other hand, won't. He's like, I saw it in the season 1 finale. Your brother doesn't have it in him just to go straight up fight someone for no reason. He has to, like, have the proper motivation, and Show, like, did all that. Like, that whole thing wasn't for Mob's family's sake. That was for Mob. It's to try and get Shigeo to, like, be so angry, which even Risu was like, yeah, you did something. My brother's going to be so pissed at you. And it shows like, oh yeah, like, and I think he said, oh, you must have had a tough life too. I wonder if he's referencing like, oh, like, for you to know that about your brother must mean you've been on the other end of that. But it's like, not many people know the depths of what's inside of Mob. Only a handful of people have ever kind of faced it. The psychic from like episode 4/5 got a taste of that. And then obviously Tsuruki had a taste of it, but not too many people face what's kind of buried deep within Mob. And luckily no one will, or at least for the time being, considering how Dimple was able to calm him down enough that he kind of just, he's still at 100%, but he's just, like I said, he's obsessed and not off the deep end like he was kind of set up to be at the end of last episode. Either way, he confronts the psychics, and this is all going down publicly. I mean, some of these fights have happened publicly too, like his, what's the guy's name, Kayama, the one who took Risu last season. That fight was, that was in front of like a whole bunch of other gang leaders from schools, but like this is like the general public, and Mob wants them to use their powers because he's trying to find out which one of them made the fake versions of his family. Turns out these guys never made it to his family, because obviously Show got to them beforehand. So these people hadn't had a chance to attack his family yet. The first guy tries electricity. Mob kind of deals with that immediately. He's like, I'm not even gonna bother with that. Like tosses him, and then he slams him, ricochets him off a couple buildings. Kind of gave him the smaller Kayama treatment, because like Kayama's like defeat by Mob was just like, yeah, I'm gonna ricochet you everywhere, just like stick you into the ceiling. And then the other guy buffs himself up, and Mob just kind of laid him out with a couple like punches and stuff like that, because he's like, oh, you must have put up a pretty good barrier. I mean, it didn't even seem like Mob put up a barrier when he took that guy's punch. So I mean, typically we've seen what it looks like when Mob does put up a barrier, and it's like, it didn't look like he put up one. So kind of washed these guys immediately. But yeah, like I said, they had nothing to do with his family. But this guy says like, oh, I've called the other upper echelon people. And later on, we see like other Scar members. And I was like, wait, are there more people with scars? Because I thought that was the whole point of like, I thought the scars were exclusive to the 7th division, but I guess not. Because we saw like other division. Apparently, there were the other like, 6 division leaders all had scars. Because I was like, because if I remember correctly, and someone can correct me in the comments down below, didn't like we not run into all the scars from last season? Like, because I think when like Mob, Tsuruki, and Dimple infiltrated, like only most of the organization was there. Most of the 7th Division was there, but I think there were still like a few missing members, if I remember correctly. Well, no, like I think Torado was one of them. That's because like, well, he was kind of getting dealt with, but maybe it's like only 1 or 2. I can't remember. So at first I thought these other Scar members were like, oh, maybe they're members of, because the whole thing was, and this was my misunderstanding. My thinking was like, oh, these people got scars because I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but didn't they get scars because the 7th Division's leader gave them the scars? But like maybe they're talking about someone else. The head of the organization shows dad is the one who gave them the scars. Maybe that's what that's about. I don't know. Like I said, it has been a little while, so I might be misremembering. So like seeing other people with scars, I was like, what's up with that? So like I said, maybe I've assumed that the scars were just to the 7th Division, but maybe there are other members of Claw who have scars, who like scars might not just be a group isolated to the 7th Division, that there are other scars scattered throughout all of Claw. But either way, like, I'm jumping all over the place, so I do apologize. But when Mob was done dealing with those guys, was it Kayama shows up, and it's kind of what I thought. Like, yeah, all of the members of Claw that they fought last season are all good guys, except for the leader. So it seems like we see him, but I can only assume he must still be a part of Claw. But it's like, no, to be fair, Sho defeated him himself, so it might be like he might not have ever kind of gone on a straight and narrow like the others did. We have no idea what his circumstances are, but at least the others kind of gave up, and like those who were like who interacted with Regan last season are the ones who really like try to turn their lives around. But just in general, all of them ended up leaving Claw. So and the fact is he wasn't there makes me, like I said, I think because Sho's the one that defeated him himself, it's kind of like because they were like, yeah, because we left Claw, it was only a matter of time until like Claw sent people after us. And it's like, it's run-of-the-mill members, no problem. The problem is once like the higher ups start getting involved, that's when we really have a problem. So, but basically they went around gathering up everybody who might be in trouble. Obviously they tried to get in contact with Tsuruki, who got attacked by one of those said members of Claw. Then Regan was out of his building at the time, but by the time he came back, because he wanted to do some renovations to the office considering all the new clientele he's getting, and by the time he came back, his office was on fire. So and then we have some of the kids, the psychic kids from last season as well there. So, but obviously upon seeing his master, Mob was still a little shaken because he didn't know what about his family. So Dimple and Regan talk, and Dimple explained his explanation of like, right, I think this is what happened to Mob's family. He's like, there's no guarantee, but this is what I'm feeling. And then Regan ended up guessing right. He might be a charlatan, but he does have some wherewithal. He does kind of pick up on stuff kind of relatively quickly. And what he laid out ultimately ended up being the case. He's like, yeah, someone must have got to your family first and made that whole thing seem like an accident so they wouldn't come after you. Once again, we know the truth. That Sho did that to incite anger in Mob, not necessarily to protect his family, but regardless of your reasoning for doing what you did, you still protected his family in the end, so that's kind of all that matters. They're probably going to have to come back to like a burned down house, but that's a whole other thing. Regardless, it calms Mom down to the point he passes out. Because I guess it's like twofold. It's like the stress and worry wore him out, plus like he pushed himself. Once again, he clicked over into the question marks, and then like luckily Dimple was able to rein him back in, and probably being that like hyped up on his emotions probably drained him a lot more. It probably typically does. He doesn't stay in that mode for a long time. He usually kind of gets a burst depending on the circumstances, and then he like reins it back in, and it kind of typically will drain him. It's understandable considering like everything is tied to his emotions, and you can be emotionally drained after something like that. Like the more stressed out and more heightened your emotions are and stuff. So then we had Taruki showing up with one of the people, and just like Tarada got tortured last season. This guy's getting tortured. He's like, oh, I'll never get any information. And the moment Taruki starts dunking his head, I think it's Terada being like, yes, there's no way anyone's going to not break from this situation. The guy immediately comes up. He's like, yes, okay, I'll give you all the information I need to give you. And obviously some of the members who are formerly of Claw, who are fans of Regan, are like, what should we do, Master Regan? He's like, right, the number one thing we should do is contact the police and tell them about this. And it's just like, right. I don't know why Regan tries to continue having like a slightly sensible resolution to like a crazy out there situation, but regardless. At the same time this is all going down, Sho's dad makes his declaration to Japan. Because for him, it's like, our plan is world domination. He's like, this world, we're going to show our power to the powerless. I don't know if it's meant to be a thing of we're going to, I don't know if this comes from a place of we all know what it's like to be powerless at one point in time. And now that we have the power, we're going to reshape the world what we want it to be. Like, I don't know if it's something as lofty as that or whether it's just, they say like their goal is world domination, but beyond that, I mean, it kind of plays in what Regan was talking about. It's like, you guys are like have something so childish. It's like something as simple as world domination. It's as classic villain as you can get. It's not like, is there more to that? Like, I don't know. I mean, Sho's dad looks like a straight up like villain, but I'm like, is it really just going to be something as shallow as just world domination, or is there going to be more to it? It's like, I mean, they add in like, we're going to rebuild the world the way we want it to be. So there's 600 members of Claw in totality. They bring up the fact is like amongst the police and the like military, there are like, was it like 600,000 people in Japan who can use guns. So basically each member of Claw will basically, every member of Claw will have to defeat like, 1,000 members? Like each member of Claw would have to basically take out 1,000 people, and they're kind of some of the people talking like, like, oh my god, he's got such a genius plan and stuff. And it's like, oh, it'll be so simple. It's like, yeah, but how many of you are really top tier like espers? Some of you are probably on the lower range, as we saw with only some of the people from Claw, specifically in the 7th division, had powers, or others were kind of like working their way up. So a lot of them are probably Joe Schmoes, except for like the very exceptional people. I love how like, I don't know what you'd call it, like the red herrings of this situation, where we meet members of Claw and you're like, oh, I guess these are the like Joseph's squad. You're like, oh, I guess they're going to be the badasses we deal with. And then it turns out, nope. Joseph's actually leading a coup from the inside because apparently he was sent by the government to infiltrate this organization. He was the main one, but then he convinced other people to join his side. So the other people in his squad, and they're fine with that because one of the dudes is like, oh, I just want to like break stuff. So it doesn't matter who I have to fight. It's all fine. It's all Gucci. So it's like, right, we take out the division heads and it's all going to come crumbling down. Joseph tries to confront Sho's dad, but gets put in his place when the Ultimates, which is kind of his like, I don't know if they're his personal squad, but they're the tippity top of Claw. They're like the 5 badasses, and he gets immediately wiped. The dude with the umbrella, which we don't really see his face, but he is in the intro because he's like the one that holds the umbrella over Sho's dad, and Sho attacks him directly. I think it's interesting how Sho's reaction to his father's declaration, it seemed more like a, oh my god, that was so, like, the look on his face, like he was embarrassed. He's like, oh, I'm going to be the one to take him down. I'm like, are you upset because your dad has such a childish thing? And you're like, oh, that's so cringe, Dad. I got to beat your ass for it. I don't know if that shows motivation. I mean, like I said, we knew last season he had a spicy relationship with his dad, but maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we won't. But I'm like, that's so interesting. But yeah, like, Joseph and his squad got immediately washed. So like I said, I love the whole thing of like, okay, you think you have to deal with the larger organization? You kind of do, but the division heads were wiped out, which even shows that's like, that's not that big of a deal. Them falling doesn't change the fact this Claw is still going to be strong. For him, it's like, as long as me and the Ultimates are still around, that's all that matters. As long as we stand tall, like, the pillars that hold up this organization will continue. So fine with the division heads being wiped out. But yeah, he got rid of a mole, an insider like Joseph, and his squad, easily getting washed by his people. And each one of them is the people, because I was wondering if like Joseph and them were the people we saw in the intro. Like, I thought that might be the case, but it's like, no, the squad we see in the opening, like fighting Sho and the other former members of the 7th Division, those are all the Ultimates. So, and then like the main dude, the leader of them, was it Shimaki? Was that his name? Was it Shimazaki? It might just been Shimaki. I can't remember. The number one member of the Ultimates. Once again, now, I might have brought this up last season too, like talking about Claude. Like once again, my point of reference when it comes to organizations is either two things. It's either Organization 13 from Kingdom Hearts or Ouroboros from Trails of the Trails/Kaseki series. Ouroboros would be a better example considering how large that organization is and the structure of it, where it's like at the tippity top you have the Grandmaster, then you have the Anguisses, and then you have the Enforcers, and then you have just other people like the Enhanced Jaegers and so on and so forth, and technically the Red Constellation kind of falls under that because of Trolley, but tangents and all that aside. So it has a lot of interesting infrastructure that immediately makes me think of like I said, Ouroboros. But either way, the tippity top number one guy, especially because I didn't. When we saw his eyes initially, I did not interpret that as like it's meant to be that he's blind. I don't know if that's like artistic representation of just like, right, instead of his eyes just being pure white, they're pure shadow, or is it supposed to mean like his eyes are literally gone? He says blind, so I'm assuming like he just lost his eyesight. And for him, it's like, I'm able to predict what people, like, he's getting bullets fired at him, but he's like, oh, I can dodge all of them, but even if I don't, I'm perfectly fine. And so I'm like, okay, so you just either have very tough skin or what? And he also has the power to teleport. I think Mob can too, but Mob was like, honestly, it's kind of too much of a effort and he just doesn't want to, or doesn't. I think he talks about like not wanting to do it because it makes him sick, or I think, yeah, I believe so. It was either that or flying or something like that. It was something he, I think, talked about in season 1. He doesn't like to do because it makes him like queasy or whatever to do it, so he doesn't. But yeah, this guy teleports. He's kidnapping the prime minister to use him as a hostage. But then Taruki caught sight and tried to fight the guy and sadly got washed. You know, Taruki tried to make a barrier, but the guy is able to literally Taruki made a multi-layered barrier, but the guy got inside of his barrier and knocked him out. So, and the other squad got there just in time after Taruki lost, and the guy took off with the prime minister. So I guess that's how you're going to get the rest of the country to easily fall in line, is if you threaten to hold the prime minister hostage. I know like the US has the thing of like, right, don't negotiate with terrorists. I actually don't know how many other countries have that same mentality. I'm really interested to see where this all goes. We're down to like what, last 4 episodes, I believe. It's 13 episodes this season, so last 4 episodes to see where this all goes. And I'm sure like these next 4 episodes are all going to revolve around this. But like I said, I'm curious to find out like what Sho's beef is with his dad. He seemed like he cooperated with his dad up to a certain point, and like I said, it just felt like he was embarrassed that his dad made this world domination declaration, and that upset him. And that seems to be. He's like, oh, I'm going to take my dad down. It's like, I mean, I guess it could just be your typical rebellious kid, but I wonder, like I said, on both sides when it comes to motivation, is it just that shallow? But even shallow-wise, it's like, well, you know, it could be shallow to everyone else, but it could be deep, and it feels like it could easily be played off as a jokey reason in the confines of the anime, but we'll see how this gets handled going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.